Today we're going to start by reading from Matthew chapter 17, right on verse 1. 6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter and James and his brother John and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them. And his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became dazzling white. Suddenly, there appeared with him Moses and Elijah, talking with him. And then Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will make 3 dwellings here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." While he was still speaking, suddenly a bright cloud overshadowed them, and from the cloud a voice said, "This is my Son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." When the disciples heard this, they fell to the ground and were overcome by fear. But Jesus came and touched them, and saying, "Get up, do not be afraid." And when they looked up, they saw no one except Jesus himself alone. As they were coming down the mountain, Jesus ordered them, "Tell no one about the vision until after the Son of Man has been raised from the dead." And the disciples asked him, "Why then do the scribes say that Elijah must come first?" He replied, "Elijah is indeed coming and will restore all things. But I tell you that Elijah has already come, and they did not recognize him. But they did to him whatever they pleased. So also the Son of Man is about to suffer at their hands." Then the disciples understood that he was speaking to them about John the Baptist. Yesterday in the church year, Christian year, we celebrated Transfiguration Sunday. We didn't say a lot about it in our church service yesterday, but as the church year progresses, it's the Sunday before Ash Wednesday begins. It's Transfiguration. So many churches shared in that story together yesterday. And so I wanted to share it with you today to remind you of all that is happening in the life of Jesus right now as we walk through Jesus' life and walk with him as he gets to Jerusalem and gets to the cross, because we begin that journey this Wednesday. So I was thinking about this story, and I thought, well, what can I share? How can we reflect on that? And if you know me by now, you know that I'm going to try to find a song to help reflect on the story or the scripture. And so I wanted to bring 2 songs into reflection today. You could put yourself in the shoes of the disciples as you hear these songs. The first one I want to share with you as a reflection, we could say this might be some of the reflections that could have been going through the minds of the disciples as they first saw these other people with Jesus, Moses and Elijah, and they were celebrating and they were like, "This is good. It is good that we are here." And so I wonder if a song of praise came into their hearts, kind of like we sang yesterday in our worship service. "Joyful, joyful, we adore thee, God of glory, Lord of love." That hymn was written, the words were written by Henry Van Dyke. I believe the year was 1850, well, he was born in 1852, so the text came about 50 years later in 1907. That we always know this hymn to be related to Beethoven because of the symphony, da 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 da. But we also remember where the text came from. And so that was written just barely in the 20th century. "Joyful, joyful, we adore thee." So, can you imagine the disciples singing this song? I want to read some more of the text to you, and I want you to kind of envision this mountaintop experience, this transfiguration of Jesus, Jesus being set apart. Jesus being said, "This is my Son in whom I am well pleased." "Joyful, joyful, we adore thee, God of glory, Lord of love. Hearts unfold like flowers before thee, opening to the sun above. Melt the clouds of sin and sadness, drive our fear and doubt away. Giver of immortal gladness, fill us with the light of day. All thy works with joy surround thee. Earth and heaven reflect thy rays. Stars and angels sing around thee, center of unbroken praise. Field and forest, vale and mountain, flowery meadow and flashing sea, chanting bird and flowing fountain, call us to rejoice in thee. Mortals, join the happy chorus. Stars of morning, take your part. Love divine is reigning o'er us, binding those of tender heart. Ever singing, move we onward, victors in the midst of strife. Joyful music leads us sunward in the triumph song of life. Henry Van Dyke was a poet, a clergy person, and he understood well what it meant to be in the presence of God and to rejoice in that. So I wonder if the disciples rejoiced in being in the glory of God in that moment during the Transfiguration. As the story of Transfiguration progresses, however, the disciples get a little scared. They don't know what's happening. They start to hide their faces, and then as they walk back down the mountain with Jesus, they start to ask questions of clarity, try to figure out what's going on. It's kind of all coming back to their humanness and figuring out how they as humans can connect to what just happened. So I wonder if we ask ourselves that same question. And another song I've been introduced to just recently, or another poem that I've been recently introduced to, came to my mind. I love these words, and these words were written by John Thornburg. So about a century later, about a century after Henry Van Dyke, but also very beautiful introspective words that I wonder maybe a sense of what might have been happening with the disciples that day. Listen to this poem. Listen to these words and think about the questions and think about the human desires that are coming out as you hear these words. As one whose thirst is such that one cool sip could save my life, I come. I was alone, adrift on heavy seas of doubt. The coast so far, horizon on the other side. How vast the water all around, and still I have no drink. But now the sun breaks through the clouds to kiss the waves and to melt the gloom. And here below, my frantic feet, where I had feared to tread, a bar of sand. I touch the depth. It is not doom, as I had thought. It is the place from which I rise. And from a loving hand, cupped in grace, I drink the living water. Beautiful words by John Thornburg, who is a Methodist minister and poet and songwriter. His hymns have been found in about 15 to 20 hymn books. And he has something to say in a creative spirit about the questions that we ask, about the place of our humanity, and how our humanity connects with this Jesus that we follow. This Jesus who was set apart. This Jesus who God is well pleased. Two beautiful hymns, two beautiful poems set to music that get us thinking. So thank you for thinking with me today. As we wrap up our time together in devotion, I want to remind everyone, as I said earlier, Wednesday is Ash Wednesday. We will not have our noon prayer time on Wednesday, but instead we will have an Ash Wednesday service at 6 p.m. We will be outside at the gazebo. We invite you to come and drive in and be there in person. You can stay in your cars and listen over the radio. We will have a time together. 6 o'clock on Wednesday. We will also be online, so if you choose to stay home and watch online, you may do that. But we do want to encourage you to come by the church. Right inside the main entrance of the church, there's a green box that has some packets that say Ash Wednesday on them. They have the ashes for Ash Wednesday. We're going to do little individual vials of ashes this year that you can use. And they have some journals that we're going to be using during the service, and a candle and a couple other items for you as we begin our reflection journey of Lent together. So don't forget to come by the church and pick up those packets before Wednesday if you're going to watch online. Otherwise, if you're going to come and drive in with us, we'll have the packets there for you, and we'll hand one to each car when you arrive. We hope you have a beautiful week, and see you on Wednesday.